Hello and welcome to the Syndicated Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, here today to talk to you about more Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, Episodes 25 through 28. We are continuing down this motherfucking journey that we're going on, and we're almost halfway through Season 1 of Mighty Morphin. Like I said, the first couple seasons are a little longer than the other, about 20 episodes longer than the other season. So, the longer we go, the easier this will go by. So we start out with episode 25, Life's a Masquerade, which, I guess by definition, it's more of a costume party. But when I think Masquerade, I think of the those little fancy masks and whatnot. I guess that's just a costume party. I was expecting a little bit of a different setup than we got. This is the Halloween episode, I guess. It didn't really specify, but everyone's at a costume party. You could totally have a costume party in fucking July. You could do, well, actually, maybe not July, a little hot. February, you can have one. But typically this happens in October. But again, it wasn't specified that this is a Halloween episode. So, it wasn't really like in your face. But they're having a costume party at Ernie's because everything happens at Ernie's. Ernie's has like 1,000 different things going on at it all the time. I know it's technically the youth center, but, Ernie's always there, so. Tommy's flirting with Kim again. Bulk and Skull, they come to be, Bulk and Skull, and end up flinging paint on themselves. As, they always... It looks more like a foamy goo. Because apparently this show's foam budget was off the charts. Because anytime there's any sort of liquid, it's typically a foam of sorts. Which, I guess it's just foam and food coloring. It's probably super duper cheap. I'll keep that in mind of anything I need in the future. So Rita literally, for this costume party, sends Frankenstein's monster. It's just a grayish-blue Frankenstein monster with a little bit of a different headpiece. So everybody shows up in their costumes. Billy is Sherlock, of course. Jason is Robin Hood, I think. Trini is Pocahontas. Kim is supposed to be a princess, but she basically just looks like a damsel in distress. And Zach is a pharaoh. Tommy is not there because, like I said in every episode, Tommy has to just kind of fuck off for a while due to not having a lot of Barai stock footage. So, it's so weird. It just feels out of place for him to be like, I gotta go do this thing. In this one, he's like, I'm gonna go get my costume. I'll see you guys later. But everybody else went and got their costumes too, but still stayed together. So it's like it's the same thing with everything. Like in the basketball episode when he's like, I gotta go do this thing, and then he's just gone. It's really fucking distracting to me. And Bulk and Skull, great scene here. They are. Bulk is using that exercise band, that very 80s, early 90s thing where it's just fucking like, it's a machine that sends a band like to and fro, and it's supposed to make you lose weight. He's using one of those. So I was like, hey, there's an old thing in there. And so Bulk and Skull are like looking for costumes. And at first, Skull has them dress up like Captain Hook and Peter Pan. So Bulk's in like skin tight clothing, which is hilarious. And then he has them as a horse, and he's like, I am not going to be the horse's ass, essentially. And then he has them as Bulk is young Elvis, or Skull is young Elvis, and Bulk is old Elvis, and they do like a little like dance routine. Kind of fun. But they end up coming as in their normal clothes. But he's like, good idea for the punk costumes, but it's literally just what they wear all the time. It's awesome. It's an awesome little scene there. Bulk and Skull, like I said, even if an episode is going pretty, like, terrible, Bulk and Skull can come in and turn it around if they're given enough screen time. So I'm, all four of them having... There was supposed to be a Bulk and Skull, like, spinoff show that never happened, and I don't know why the fuck that didn't happen. I know when you take Comic Relief and give them their own platform, it tends to not be good. Because typically when there's no straight man to the foil character, it's just goofy and not in a good way. But I would have loved to have seen a Bulk and Skull spinoff. Like, there has to be a pilot out there somewhere. Some exec has this in a closet somewhere, and I want it. Because that was probably pretty decent. Or maybe it was fucking trash. I don't know, but I want to see it nevertheless. And Zach is trying to flirt with Angela, who matches his costume. He's a pharaoh, and I think she's like Cleopatra or something. And she always shoots him down so fast, because Zach and Jason have like zero luck with women, like, ever. And Alpha shows up because it's Halloween, I think, and he just looks like a guy in a costume, because he actually is a guy in a costume. But in the context of the show, he fits in. And the ladies love Alpha, which Zach's a little jealous of. And so the monster arrives, and he also blends in with the crowd, because it's just essentially a guy in a Frankenstein costume. And meanwhile, Finster is getting Super Putty to make Super Putties. Wonder how that name came across. And essentially, and we'll talk about it in the next episode more, but these Super Putties aren't really all that different from normal putties. But he's mining this clay for it. And the monster is, like, taken to the dance floor, and there's some comedic stuff where he's trying to, like, punch this girl in the face. And she's dancing, so she's dodging with the dancing, but he eventually, like, throws her. But if he'd have connected with one of those hooks, he was throwing haymakers. And I was like, damn, Power Rangers, you really went dark here. But he throws her, and a bunch of people catch her, and so then everyone's like, oh, because at first they're like, is that Tommy? And clearly not. Like, he would say something, you know? And he also wouldn't be tossing bitches. So they're like, clearly something is wrong. So Billy follows said Frankenstein monster. Oh, and there was a small little scene where Skull, like, shoots a sticky dart at him, and he kind of fucks with them about it. And he's like, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. Like, of course, Skull would have that on hand. But Billy follows him because he's in a Sherlock costume, so he's got to get to the bottom of this. And he follows into the cave where they're taking out the Super Putty. And the monster, when it's in the cave, is clearly Japanese stock footage, because the costume's different. Because in the footage with Ernie, it just looks like a dude with face paint on. But in this one, he's got a little bit of a mold to where he's got big red eyes that kind of bug out a little bit with the costume. Like, it's fairly similar, but you can clearly tell that A, the facial structure is different because it's a Japanese person, and B, that the eyes are different and the costume's a little differently done. So, like, that's clearly the Japanese stock footage. But they did a decent job replicating it as good as well as they could for the American footage. But I think the Japanese one looks a little cooler because of the eyes. But still, it's a dumb monster. So Billy morphs. And when he morphs, he says, because he doesn't say it's morphin' time, he says it's time for molecular transmutation, which is one of the least annoying things Billy said the whole show. So I'm okay with that one. So he morphs, and the monster just whoops his ass. Does not really get any offense in. And Rita, this makes zero sense. She rides a rock, like a giant rock, into the town and just monologues about how she's gonna win this fight against the Rangers. Don't know why that happened. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it doesn't really go anywhere. just gives the actress who voices Rita some more lines, I guess. So that happens. And then Tommy is attacked by Putties. Well, everyone else is fighting the monster, and they morph. And the monster takes out the bolts on the side of his neck, and they're attached to like a chain. So he's got like this chain bolt melee weapon. A lot of monsters have chain weapons in this because it's easy to have some sort of ranged weapon. It's either swords or some sort of chain weapon. So then he grows, and they get the dinosaurs and the Megazord. But the monster is whooping the Megazord pretty decent. He's doing a decent job at it. As fucking stupid as this monster looks, he's not doing so bad. And so I have to give him, and on the ranking video, I will give props, even if they're a dumb design. They're doing better than like Chunky Chicken and Tickle Sneezer. So, you know. Meanwhile, Tommy is called into action after he beats the Putties. He morphs, sends in the Dragon Zord, and the monster just starts whooping the Dragon Zord too. But then we get Mega Dragon Zord, and the Drill Staff takes us home, just like Power Sword would do. Slashes the fuck out of the Frankenstein monster, beats him, and then we go back to the party where Bulk and Skull are like messing with Alpha, and then are scared away by the Frankenstein monster, who turns out to be Tommy, who has the exact same costume as the Frankenstein monster in the American footage. And it's like, he's like, well, I got some ideas from that monster. And I'm like, one, how'd you have enough time to get that together? And two, what are the fucking odds that you would have the exact same face paint scheme, the same plastic headpiece, and the entire, like, garb? Like, that, it doesn't make any sense. And I know this is Power Rangers, and things don't make sense. But that was kind of goofy. I know it was just for a gag to scare Bulk and Skull. Just like Zach doing the magic trick to get the flowers to scare them in the other episode. Zach's never done magic before or since. But that had to be a joke because Bulk and Skull need to be foiled. But it's kind of like in Halloween 2, how Ben Tramer is wearing, even though it's a shittier mask, he's wearing the exact same costume as Michael Myers. Now, I know they said the mask was common in Halloween, but Michael Myers killed a mechanic and took the suit. What are the fucking odds that a guy would have the same mask and be also wearing overalls or the fucking mechanic's garb at the same time? It's that kind of logic here. It's like, what are the odds that Tommy would have the exact same fucking supplies that Rita had for her monster? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know that was way more of a rant than that needed to be. So that takes us to episode 26, Gung-Ho. So Tommy and Jason they have like a team ninja competition. It doesn't really make a lot of sense in the context. Like, maybe it's a thing. I'm not super keen on martial arts competitions. But they have to essentially work together, and they're bad at working together because during their training, Zach and Billy are trying to help them out, but Tommy and Jason are doing that class. I mean, they're teenage boys who are both want to be number one. So they're trying to one-up each other when they're training instead of trying to use each other's moves together and make each other look good. They're trying to outshine the other one. And then training's like, you guys need to use Gung-Ho. And they and I were like, Gung-Ho? And she's like, yeah, it means work together. And I'm like, is that really what that means? Interesting. And Rita's like, it's time to test out my Super Putties. And so the main monster this week is Super Putties. So don't get too excited because we don't get anything super neat in this episode. So Bulk and Skull have hired two guys who are just dressed in ninja garb. We don't see their faces, but they've hired two people to enter the ninja competition against Tommy and Jason. And they show off their skills. They're good, and they're not trying to one-up each other. So, they got clear-cut competition, but they still are trying to... Not only are they still trying to one-up each other, but they're cocky about it. They think that they could beat these guys no problem. So, they're definitely setting themselves up here, right? And I like that the show's doing this. Because, yes, these are fucking saint teenagers. They're crime fighters. They're trying to help the environment and world peace and the hungry and the town and the people. But even though they're teenagers, right? They still have teenage problems. They still may have a little bit of an ego problem at times. They're still they're learning to not be dicks. That still happens, right? So I'm glad that the show did this. It's a little overacted, but I'm glad that they're touching on these actual things. But during the demonstration, the Bulk and Skull's guys kick a punching bag, which then comes back and hits Bulk. So even though Bulk and Skull have a team that looks like they can win, they still never get to really enjoy a victory moment because something goofy happens to them, even when they're winning. So that was a fun little moment. So the Super Putties show up, and the only difference is they have giant gloves. Like, they have big rock gloves, and some of them have a giant ball, like a rock ball. It's very, very roundish. It's not like a shape of a rock. It's just a ball on their fist. It's the only difference between a Super Putty and a normal putty. You'd think you'd change the design a little bit more, but nevertheless, it doesn't really fucking matter. So they attack Trini and Kimberly, and Trini and Kimberly proceed to get their ass kicked. So the boys rush out. They're on a playground. They're doing slide gags, kicking them off ladders and slides, and Kim's on like a balance bar doing some swinging gymnastics, like in Jurassic Park: The Lost World, when the girl kicks the velociraptor out a window. She does that shit. But they're still getting overwhelmed, so they retreat back to Exposition Machine, Zordon. And he's like, yeah, those are Rita's Super Putties. They're a lot stronger than regular putties. I'm like, thanks for the fucking heads up, Zordon. Why do you always wait till shit goes sideways? You could have came on the communicator be careful, Rangers. These are Super Putties. They're a little stronger than the normal putties. That would have been, you could have done that. You had to call us back here after we got our ass whipped to be like, oh yeah, by the way, guys, they were a lot stronger. And I know you didn't know that when you went into battle, but hey, lessons learned, right? You fucking asshole. So Tommy and Jason are sent to get new weapons to use against the Super Putties. And everybody else is sent to hold them. Everybody else has the job of get your ass kicked, while Tommy and Jason, we're going to send them to learn to work together. So because they can't, they have shit they need to work out, you all are just going to get beat up for a while. Fucking thanks, guys. And even so they're fighting the Super Putties, and they manage to blow them up, and then they just regenerate with some really decent stop motion animation. So I thought that was a nice touch. They show it a couple of times, but it's not overdone. They don't show it so many times to where you're like, okay, we've fucking seen this enough. Twice is enough. Looks good. So Jason and Tommy, while they're going to get the guns, they're bickering, I'm going to get the guns before you. No, I'm going to get the guns before you. And it's Jesus fucking Christ. And they're way too cocky about it. But then they find Titanus. And I'm like, hey, Titanus. And Titanus is another Zord, which is used to make Ultra Zord. And it's the Titanosaur, I believe is the name of that dinosaur. It's very big. It's a long-necked dinosaur. But Titanus is shooting lasers at them and whipping their ass. So Jason's like, shit, this guy's strong. Let's work together and put aside our differences. I'm like, well, that was a little bit of a fast turnaround, Lessons aren't learned that fast. But okay. We only have 30 minutes, right? So, he's like, all right, Tommy, you're better with your sword. I'm better with my defense. So Tommy's like, here. And he gives him the dragon shield. So Jason's wearing the gold shield now. And he's taking all the laser blasts. Tommy's holding them off. Jason runs up, gets the weapons, which are essentially just normal blasters with a pulley on the back. So you pull the back and then the laser shoots out. Very anticlimactic with that, right? But we've established, Titanus. So not a complete waste of time. So they get the pulley guns, and that kills the Putties. So that was super easy. On Jason and Tommy, they're like, we're ready to work together. And they go to the competition, and it's a close fight with the ninja guys that Bulk and Skull have, but the boys win, and Bulk and Skull are really sad about it. But, all in all, a pretty useless episode. Like, if you want to know essential episodes, which if you're interested in having a video about that, comment down below if you want me to do. If you're going to watch, the first season of Mighty Morphin, but you don't want to watch every episode. You just want the essentials. If you want me to make a video about that, I'll make a video about what episodes to watch and what episodes to skip. If you want that. Only if that's something that's commented on. If no one comments that they want it, I won't make it. But I would be willing to do that if that's something you guys want. Anyway, on to episode 27, The Wheel of Misfortune, which I think is another kind of useless episode. But we'll talk about it. So the kids are putting on a play in drama class. It's not really established why these specific, these kids, they're putting on they're learning lines for a play on top of all this other shit. Like, again, the time needed for this. But Bulk and Skull are actually in this play too, because apparently they're the only kids that go to this high school. And Bulk's not really into doing. It's Rumpelstiltskin, and Bulk is playing the titular role. But he's doing his lines. He's like, I gotta give it a flavor of the 90s. So he's like calling Kim babe and talking like basically he would normally talk as Rumpelstiltskin. So it's like a Romeo plus Juliet. We'll do some modernization while still keeping the material. But flip-flopped. It looks the same. But, the lines are different. So the lines being the same, but the look being different. And during it, Bulk trying to be cool, and he breaks the wheel, which is apparently Kim's grandmother's antique spinning wheel. She's super mad, and it also blows off the teacher's toupee, so we get the dumb toupee gag again, because, baldness is funny. Cue the SpongeBob thing of the bald! So Kim's super pissed about it, super heartbroken. And also, during that, we noticed that, and Bulk's like, calm down, and she's like, I won't calm down, this is very important to me. And Skull's dressed as the Jester. I'm like, of course Skull's the Jester. That's a perfect role for him. And so Rita's like, oh, you want a wheel, do you? Oh, I'll give you a wheel monster. And I'm like, what? Why does everything these kids do have to turn into... It doesn't always have to be ironic. They could be taking a shit, and she'd be like, oh, you want to take a shit, do you? I'll make a shit monster. And, it'll be like the thing from Dogma. Really, it's like every little thing these kids do, she tries to turn into some sort of monster. And again, the monster in this, we'll talk about it. Can be real stupid. So, Kim is venting to Ernie and Tommy about the wheel. And Tommy's like, hey, well, I'll fix it for you. Because, he's trying to get in her pants. And Rita's like, I want that wheel. So Goldar and the Putties steal it. And Kim's like, oh, no, now it's gone. First it's broken. Now she's really going to be pissed. We don't even have the thing at all. It's been a real bad day for her. And Tommy goes to Bulk and Skull, like, did you guys steal it? Bulk's like, why would I steal a spinning wheel? What use would I have for that? Valid point. So Rita turns said wheel into the Wheel of Misfortune. which is just the wheel with spikes on it. That's the only change in the design. And it has no special powers. You think with a name like Wheel of Misfortune, it would spin and, like, give Rangers certain, like, terrible situations to be put in. No, it's just a spiked wheel that spins around and hits people with spikes. Like, that's all it does. We'll talk about it when it comes up, but, like, that's a very, 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 very dumb design. It's not really dumb, like goofy. It's not like Chunky Chicken where it's like, that's just fucking goofy. It's lazy. It's just a wheel with spikes on it. Like, a kid could have made that. A kid might have made that. It might have been someone's 2-year-old's picture, and they put it up on the fridge, and they're like, oh, we need another monster for this episode. They're like, fuck this thing. What is it? I don't know. It's a wheel. Misfortune. Because, Wheel of Fortune was probably popular around that time. So, dumb wheel is brought in. Tommy's then attacked by Putties. And he starts just fucking throwing him off a bridge. So, a little morbid. And he puts a good whooping, but they end up just tying him to the bridge like it's a fucking Western cereal. We were missing the train, though. If they had a train, I would have actually gave it more points. But they didn't really lean into the bitch. So because of that, it didn't go full tilt. So Tommy's trapped, and the rest of the Rangers go to Exposition Machine Zordon, and he tells them about the wheel, and then he's like, Tommy won't be of use until we're able to free him. So again, Tommy's got to fuck off for most of the episode. How do we do that? Well, we just tie him to a bridge. So Goldar and Scorpina arrive. The Rangers morph. Goldar and Scorpina grow, so Scorpina is all ugly now. They bring in the dinosaurs, and Goldar throws a net on the Tyrannosaur that just zaps it. It's like an electric net. So I call it Goldar's Zappy Net. So the Tyrannosaur's in trouble. Scorpina's blasting the other Zords because they need the Dragon Zords. Since the Dragon Zord was introduced, Megazord just doesn't cut it anymore, right? So Tommy frees himself by cutting his ropes on the tree. How fucking jagged was this tree, right? Like, and how weak was this rope? It looked fairly thick. Trees aren't that sharp. Nevertheless, he frees himself. He beats up the Putties and morphs into action. Calls the Dragon Zord, saves the Tyrannosaur from the Zappy Net. Then the wheel just starts flying around. This is where this shit comes into play. The wheel's flying around, hitting the Zords, sending sparks everywhere, because, nothing is ever, morbid like that. There's no blood or anything. So it just looks like a fly. It just looks super annoying. The Megazords are just trying to, smack it away, right? So they get the Power Sword, just trying to smack that wheel away. The Dragon Zord is then fighting Scorpina and Goldar all by itself. And they call upon the power of Titanus. We get the introduction of the Ultra Zord, a shitty villain to test it out on. But they get Ultra Zord, which is basically Titanus spreads apart. The Megazord sits in it, and it's like a giant tank. That's, it's very easy to use Ultra Zord. So they destroy the wheel very easily. And when they get back, the wheel is not only back, but it's been fixed. You'd think, since they blew up the Wheel of Misfortune, the wheel would be completely gone, right? No, it's not only back, but it's fixed from earlier. Very lazy writing on the end of that episode. Nevertheless, Bulk and Skull, when curtains open, they're like watching cartoons in the back and they get drug out. And I call it Bulkle Stillskin. He misses his cue. But he comes in and he's not a bad actor. But he leans over the wheel and his pants split. And Bulk in his jester costume's laughing. And everyone's like, ma ha ha ha. Isn't it funny how this whole show got ruined, and then the crowd laughs and everyone laughs, but it's like, my drama teacher would have had a conniption fit if this is how our play went down. This is not successful at all. But nevertheless, Bulk and Skull got foiled, so even if that is not positive to what the wanted outcome was, it still gets a laugh from everybody. So that brings us to episode 28, the last episode we'll be talking about in this installment of the podcast. Island of Illusion Part 1. So we'll be ending this one on a cliffhanger. Ooh. So we start out, Zach is dancing around and knocks a drink onto Bulk. So now Bulk's all pissy, and Zach's like, man, I'm just not that good. Like, he got Willie's confidence from that episode, all those episodes ago. You remember Willie, everybody? He doesn't exist anymore, apparently, but he's got that thing where he's like, I just can't do it. Comes out of nowhere, but Zach's having a self-esteem issue. Meanwhile, Tommy is teaching these two kids karate. Even though Jason has the karate class, which we haven't really seen in a while, Tommy, I guess, also has a karate class? But he only has 2 students? I'm not entirely sure why. But also, like, Kim has a gymnastics class or a dance class or whatever. Or both, I think. And Zach has the hip-hop keto class. But we've only seen them do it a couple of times. I don't know how often are these classes happening. But anyway, I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it here. But Tommy's teaching these kids how to fight. And we get another Bulk and Zach dance-off. We already did this a while back. It was one of the first episodes, I think we did this. But we're doing it again. And Bulk just falls over. So another just pratfall situation. But Zach's like, yeah, I can beat Bulk, but I don't know if I can win this competition. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? And then Rita is calling upon Lokar and New Titus. So New Titus will be fighting the Rangers, and Lokar will send them to the titular Island of Illusion. And when they're summoned, there's just a fuck ton of darkness and lightning. It's very stereotypical villain stuff here. But when I heard the name Lokar, I laughed so hard because I thought I heard Lothar, which made me think of Ed Nettie. And I was like, oh man, how brilliant would it be if someone makes this, splices this into the footage? I will fucking, I will give you a thumbs up, mate. But having like the Rangers getting ready for a battle, and it says Ed dressed as Lothar. I am Lothar! I would fucking lose my mind. But it's not that. But it's Lokar and New Titus. So Zordon, when they're called, he's no exposition. Like, that's a first, right? Like, I was like, wow, he doesn't know what's going on for the first time in 28 episodes. So the Rangers have no idea what they're about to get into. And Tommy, while everyone else goes over to Zordon, he's like, I gotta stay and watch my students. Bro, I'm like, all right, can't Zordon watch your kids? Like he did with Zach's students? Like, why the fuck isn't that an option now? Oh, yeah, that's right. Tommy's got to fuck off for most of the episode. So the Rangers find Zach, and just in time because the Putties arrived. And there's really good choreography, especially Zach. Like, he does some really good, like, dance fighting in this. Looks very flashy. Jason gets some good. Everyone got good moves in, good flips. Looks great. We've definitely improved on the fight choreography over these 28 episodes. So Goldar and Scorpina show up because, when you got to have some villains to take some time, you get Goldar and Scorpina. So the Rangers morph, and then we get Lokar. Or not Lokar. We get New Titus, which is an interesting name. So New Titus kind of looks like a zombie version of the Juggernaut from 13 Ghosts. Like, he's got all the bolts and shit sticking out of his body, but he's got like a Skeletor-looking face, and he's very fleshy looking. Really good design. after fucking the Wheel of Misfortune, really bad Super Putties, and just all these bad villains, the fucking Frankenstein monster, we got a good-looking villain. I was like, hell yeah, I'm down for this. So they call the Dinosaurs and get the Megazord, and New Titus's weapon is a ball and chain. So again, gotta have the chain weapons. So then Lokar arrived it's in the sky. He just looks like a giant guy with head with face paint and like an Indian headdress kind of deal going on. So as good as New Titus looks, Lokar looks a little ridiculous, but at the same time, not terrible. Just the giant face in the sky is a little overdone in Tokusatsu. Because I'm watching in my free time, maybe I'll podcast about it in the next couple of years. I'm watching Space Hero Shuriken. Again, I'm very bad at Japanese names, but the first episode had a giant head in the sky too. So I don't know why that's a fucking thing all the time in Tokusatsu. But so Lokar is just a giant head in the sky. So Tommy is then like, hey, Ernie, can you watch these kids while I go in action? I'm like, why couldn't you have done that like 20 minutes ago? Like, why did you stay behind if Ernie was just going to watch him anyway? Really fucking dumb. But again, I know we had to fuck off for most of the episode. But still, I'm annoyed. So then, Lokar breathes his evil breath, which is an odd power, onto New Titus, and New Titus transforms, and he has a giant dragon head with horns, and he's got Lokar's like head sticking out of his chest. It's an odd like it's the first time a villain besides Scorpina has a transformation. Kind of interesting. And New Titus rocks the fucking Megazord. So Tommy and the Dragon Zord arrived, and the Megazord and the Dragon Zord get hit with this foamy, it's called toxic foam, but it looks like a gooey sludge kind of deal. And so the Zords fall down and start sparking, and the Rangers are ejected. So the Zords get beat, and then Lokar sends them to titular Island of Illusion. And when they get there, they don't have their communicators or their morphers, so they just have their human forms. So they're very, very fucked. And then, okay, this is where shit gets really weird and goofy. As cool as this episode has actually been up to this point, this is kind of fucking dumb. So they find a dwarf playing a flute who speaks in rhymes, and his name is Quagmire. Yep, that's a thing. Like I said, this whole episode was really cool until that. And he's like, you're friends of Rita's, and friends of Rita's no friends of mine. I've got to get out of here just in time. And he disappears. And Goldar taunts them, and they see Pudgy Pig, Pine Octopus, Eye Guy, and Shell Shock coming toward them. And they're like, oh no, we don't have our morphers, and there's bad guys. Then they disappear. And he's like, it's just an illusion. Just like this whole thing. The only thing that's real is the danger. So things look really grim for everybody. And Zach's really down on himself. He's like, we're going to die. We can't survive. And then he's like, there's a snake. And he like stops and like has a panic attack. And then he starts to disappear. And I'm like, where's that moment where you're like, get it together, and you smack him? Like, why couldn't we get that here? But Zach starts to fade away. And then Quagmire shows up, basically saying that if you succumb to your fears, you will just disappear and die on this island. So things look super bad. Zach's in trouble, and then we cut to black. That's the end of that episode. So, like I said, besides the whole Quagmire character, this whole episode's really cool. New Titus is awesome looking. Both of his forms are awesome looking. Lokar's a little goofy, but not terrible. It's a decent plan on Rita's behalf. Zordon doesn't know a lot about it either, and that's really interesting. I'm still not enjoying the Tommy just fucking off for most of the episodes. That's still a little annoying. But nevertheless, I understand why it's happening in a way. It's kind of odd that they shoehorn it in, and it feels very forced. But it's not a bad episode. The other 3 episodes weren't that great, but this one was pretty damn good. And that concludes this installment of the podcast. Stay tuned next time when we finish Island of the Illusion double-parter and talk about episodes 29 through 32. Also, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. We got a lot of podcasts and other videos coming to you this year. 2021 is hopefully the uphill battle on my way to establishing myself in the podcasting community. Also, thank you so much for your support. Also, don't forget to comment down below and just let me know what you guys' thoughts and emotions are about the content you've been given so far. And again, guys, I really appreciate all that you guys are doing. Stay safe, most importantly, stay nerdy. I'm Mac Taylor. Good night.